I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
Hello, friends. The campaign to attack the supply routes is so intense that the commanders of the invading horde are starting to despair. So they have ordered their orcs to paint their trucks and equipment with camouflage patterns based on geometric stripes. These are meant to deceive the shape recognition algorithms based on computer vision that the Ukrainian drones use to hunt. This type of camouflage was originally developed for ships during World War I. And unlike conventional camouflage, which is designed to hide an object, this technique aims to make it difficult for the enemy to estimate the speed, course, and distance of a vessel, deceiving optical rangefinders and fire control systems. Unfortunately for the invaders, target recognition systems based on artificial intelligence do not rely on visual measurements of distance and movement. But come on, we have to admit their creativity. Keep painting, Ivan. A reconnaissance mosquito observes the maneuvers of a mechanized assault platoon of the horde, whose bukanka seems to have a sharp sense of the horde and self-preservation, so it tries to escape from the orcs who had left it without a handbrake. One of them manages to catch it before it falls into a ditch. At that moment, it seems that a mosquito crashes ahead, and that's when the orcs return to take it back to the rest of the team. An orc jumps out of the vehicle but gets caught, so the bukanka drags him for a while until his colleagues stop the driver. I think we should be grateful for the wonderful material the invaders offer us almost daily. Thanks for the laughs. Thank you. On the front of strategic attacks during the night of May 29th to 30th, the unmanned systems forces carried out a deep strike mission against a Russian military airfield in the city of Taganrog, Rostov Oblast. The attack resulted in the destruction of two Tupolev Tu-142 Bear F aircraft, as well as an Iskander-M tactical missile launcher, whose crew was not very efficient in the arts of tactical camouflage. The operation was carried out by the 1st Independent Center of the Unmanned Systems Forces and coordinated through the newly created Deep Strike Center, which once again demonstrates the growing capability of the defenders to carry out coordinated long-range operations, deep behind enemy lines using drones from multiple units, which is not an easy task to plan. The Tupolev 142s are the naval patrol versions of the Tu-95 Bear strategic bomber and specialize in anti-submarine warfare and long-range communications with Russian Navy submarines. The Horde operates very few of these aircraft, many of which were in storage, but they are said to have begun to be withdrawn from their depots and moved to the Taganrog aviation plant for reactivation, probably for cruise missile launches. But, as I was telling you, this wasn't all that the defenders hunted during the raid, since a drone identified an Iskander-M launcher, which was hidden in its firing position in a forest on the outskirts of Taganrog. The Coordination Center was alerted to assign raiders to destroy the system. A second drone confirmed the presence of the Iskander, after which a third one proceeded to neutralize it with a single strike. The Iskander is a mobile ballistic missile system that can carry different types of conventional and nuclear warheads, which is why they are a high priority to be deputinized, since they are one of the main threats against Ukrainian cities. I think this will interest you. After last year's incident in which a Russian soldier and a Ukrainian soldier faced each other in hand-to-hand combat using melee weapons, which was unfortunately won by the invader. The defenders realized that even in this war, where the battlefield is transparent to drones, the infantry still needs to be prepared to win in direct combat using the most basic of their weapons, which is the combat knife. And in this video, we see the type of training they undergo, which is obviously as realistic as possible, not only in trenches, but also inside destroyed houses, to prepare them as best as possible for the brutal reality of combat, hand to hand, where any mistake could mean losing your life in a brutal way. In these scenarios, you might face an opponent bigger than you, or even several enemies at the same time, so speed and knowing how to react is critical, not only to survive, but also to win. A Russian military analyst claims that the Z occupation forces are now facing between 20 and 70 mosquitoes, each, so combat must be done in small groups, and advancing is extremely difficult under these conditions. But best of all, in the end, all you can do is wish them luck. According to the Institute for the Study of War, medium-range and frontline drone attacks, combined with effective reconnaissance, are preventing the invaders from continuing to use the infiltration tactics that previously allowed them to make gradual advances. In addition, Ukrainian forces maintain the tactical advantage in multiple sectors, thanks to their mosquitoes, which harass the Russians when they try to concentrate forces or launch an attack. A Colombian citizen captured by the 63rd Ukrainian Brigade claims that he was promised a job as a mechanic in the Russian rear, but instead, he was sent to an assault post on the front line. They treated us terribly. As soon as we arrived at the Moscow airport, they treated us like rats. They took our phones and passports. They didn't even let us call our families. We were locked up the entire time. We were sent to the front at 4 a.m. Our task was to reach their base. I was walking with a friend when suddenly a huge drone. First it flew over us and turned abruptly. Flying close by, I could see it very clearly. And bam, right into it. And then there was a lot of fire. It burned my face. I took off my vest and dropped my rifle. I just abandoned them there. I kept running until I found some Ukrainian soldiers, to whom I surrendered, waving a white handkerchief, just a regular piece of cloth. I surrendered to the Ukrainians because it was better than dying or hurting others. The guys who captured me fed me well with hot food, gave me cigarettes, and gave me clean water. Yes, I regret it. I'm very sorry. Well, now you know what will happen to you if you join the invading army. For several days now, we have been focusing on the campaign against the Horde's logistics. But on the Lyman front, the operators of the Signum unit are still fighting a constant battle to contain the invaders, trying to advance through that sector. Those who have suffered such heavy casualties that many of them have lost hope of escaping or resisting, and let themselves be caught by the mosquitoes just to escape the horror they witness day after day. Well, some still try to fight, but many simply brace for impact as soon as they see the mosquitoes coming after them. The worst thing for these illegal tourists is that the Signum operators know the area like the back of their hand, so they already know every hiding place where the invaders try to conceal themselves. Smile, Ivan, you're on television. To finish, a Ukrainian Mirage 2000 flies at low altitude to drop a couple of precision bombs on Horde positions. Sacre bleu, my friend. Hello friends, it's impressive how the defenders develop and integrate new capabilities into their robot army in this new configuration called NOM-ND Recon. A reconnaissance drone is integrated and connected to the unit through a cable, which is capable of hovering for up to 4 hours at altitudes of around 50 meters. This provides real-time intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance in addition to transmitting the control signal. This greatly extends the attack drone's range in areas with electronic interference from the Horde.
Además,
the unit carries an anti-drone protection turret guided by artificial intelligence, responsible for detecting and neutralizing incoming enemy drones, providing protection within a radius of approximately 100 meters. The platform can carry and launch multiple attack drones, functioning as a mobile mothership. Developed under the Brave One program, they have a gasoline generator that turns on if the battery gets too low, and they are also connected to their operators through fiber optic links, which are resistant to electronic warfare. Ground robots are no longer used only for logistics or evacuation. They are becoming drone launch platforms, sensor nodes, and support platforms for aerial units. The invading forces on Ukraine's southern front are facing a critical situation regarding the supply not only of fuel and ammunition, but also of food due to the defenders' blockade campaign. The situation is so serious that some Z-Mill bloggers have begun to warn about the risk of famine among the troops. Logistics have been disrupted for almost a month, affecting the delivery of supplies not only to the rear and civilians, but also to frontline units. Ivan's problem can only be solved by strengthening air defenses in the area. However, the mobile anti-aircraft batteries that the Horde relied on to protect themselves from raiders have been systematically wiped out for months. So the only viable alternative the Russians have is to start producing interceptor drones in massive quantities. The technical means for this exist, but they need a political decision that allows for a more active deployment, proper training, and a constant flow of interceptors. This is no easy task for the corrupt machinery of the Russian chain of command, especially given the lack of resources to produce them. In addition, they must start searching for and trying to eliminate the command and control centers of Ukrainian drones. This is not an easy task, considering that they are increasingly farther from the front lines. The situation shows no signs of improving for the illegal tourists, given that the number of drone attacks against logistical routes in Zaporizhia and Donbass increases day by day as more Ukrainian units join the offensive. The results of the campaign so far are impressive, as demonstrated by the 483 general transport and fuel vehicles of the Horde that were destroyed on May 29 alone. Remember, these are destroyed vehicles, not just damaged ones. At this rate, Ivan will have to call the logistical donkey units back into service. Speaking of Ivan's intention to go after the Ukrainian drone operators, a new Russian Shahed drone, powered by a jet engine, is intercepted by a Stinger interceptor Mosquito. But what's interesting here is that the operator of the Mercury team from the 1020th Ukrainian Anti-Aircraft Missile Regiment who was controlling it was more than 300 kilometers away. The defenders are setting up protected control centers in the rear, where their teams of operators can work without disturbance. All this is so the invaders can keep enjoying an adventure in Ukraine, like this team sharing their experiences. Bomb, since they've been hit by 3 mosquito attacks in less than half an hour, and they have no way out of the mess they're in, since the only thing they can do is wait in that place for some vehicle to come and rescue them. On the oil sanctions front, during the early hours of May 29, operators from the 1st Independent Center for Unmanned Systems, the 414th Magyar Birds, Brigade Special Operations Forces, Defense Intelligence, the Security Service of Ukraine, and other units launched a successful attack on the Luke oil refinery in Volgograd. The attack caused fires in 4 of the plant's primary and secondary oil processing units. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported the refinery stopped operating because of the damage. The Luke Oil Volgograd refinery is one of the largest and most strategically important facilities in southern Russia. It processes approximately 14 to 15 million tons of oil per year, producing gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other petroleum products. It is the main fuel supplier for the Southern Federal District of Russia and provides crucial support to military operations, including fuel for vehicles, armored vehicles, and aircraft. This operation is the 10th Ukrainian attack on the refinery since the beginning of the Horde's invasion. Independent Russian channels like Astra confirmed the fire based on videos and photos from eyewitnesses that showed large flames and columns of smoke visible from distances of up to 30 kilometers. Refinery President of the Armed Forces, the President of the Armed Forces, the area throughout the night. Ukraine also attacked the Yaroslavsk oil pumping station, Yaroslavsk 3, in the Yaroslavsk Oblast, where a fire broke out in 2 oil tanks with capacities of 50,000 and 20,000 cubic meters. Yaroslavsk is located 700 kilometers northeast of Ukraine and is a node of the pipeline that transports crude oil from Siberia and northern Russia to the Baltic ports of Primorsk and Ust-Luga, and from there to Belarus. The General Staff of Ukraine published a summary of its activity for May, noting that June is approaching. It seems that the coming month will bring more interesting developments. We will be watching closely. The invaders will love this. The Frontline Kit Collective, based at BIP and supporting Ukraine's armed forces, since 2022 has unveiled a new quadcopter drone with Starlink, enabling space operations. It has electronic warfare capabilities while carrying an anti-tank munition, which it can drop on the positions, vehicles, or logistical centers of the Horde. One of the benefits of this system is that it can fly at low altitude over the terrain without losing the control signal with its operator, which is not possible in the case of radio-controlled attack drones. These systems return to base after delivering their message to the invaders, and according to Frontline, leave the workshop as quickly as possible. A Mortarite invader shows us the results of a swarm of drones visit. Here it is burning. What the hell? 30 drones came down on it. All right, man. And that's what was left of the tank. In my opinion, Ivan should be worried, because now that he doesn't have a tank, he'll be sent to the front as an infantryman. But that's just a temporary position, since he'll probably be quickly promoted to cosmonaut by one of the mosquitoes. Regarding the vehicle, although at first glance it looks like a TOS-1A flamethrower, those are actually wooden posts that were installed on the anti-drone cage as additional protection. If it were one, you know I'd confirm it for you right away, but it's not. To finish, why do the defenders keep fighting? It's graduation season in Ukraine, and a student is meeting with her father, who came straight from the front lines to see her reach this important milestone. Hello friends, a Mi-24 Hind from the Ukrainian Army Aviation is heading out on a new mission to support the infantry. Now that's an impressive high-performance takeoff, one that probably gave the cameraman a new haircut. But heroes don't just fly, they also jump, like this hare that took care of neutralizing an attack drone from the Horde that was lying in wait for a defender to pass by. But its operator didn't know that even nature is against the invaders. Eternal glory to Vox the Hare. Speaking of thermal cameras, a Dovush-type attack drone literally gives Putin's kiss right in the face to an invader who was riding in the pickup of a tactical Bukhanka. What an amazing way to start the week. On the other hand, the invaders are posting footage of their robotic forces at work, as in this case, showing how one of their Omich-type unmanned ground vehicles tows a fellow Auxiliary-type vehicle that has been damaged in combat. The most interesting aspect of the footage is how the Omich robotic system uses an integrated biocomputer to navigate through the terrain, which is supported in its work by a second biocomputer. Since most of these devices are defective and slow, the Horde is losing on the front, around 1,000 to 1,500 each day. Generally, biocomputers tend to be very expensive, since preparing one requires at least 18 years of intense work. However, the Mordorite Federation is known for the very low value it gives to its biocomputers. These also require at least 18 years of care, but Mordor assigns them zero value. But come on, at least we have to acknowledge that these disposable biocomputers are completely compostable, which is positive for the environment. Continuing with the biocomputers, one of them was driving a Kamaz truck that was towing an old M46 cannon from the 1950s along a road inside Mordor. But it didn't notice the presence of a civilian vehicle, which it turned into a stamp, ruining the whole afternoon for the civilian who was driving it. There have been many accidents between heavy military and civilian vehicles, with civilians usually suffering more. This MiG-29 from the Air Force also shoots down one of Ivan's strategic attack vultures, but in this case, using an air-to-air missile over the Rivne region. I agree that the same objective is achieved, but the cost is vastly different. On the oil sanctions front, long-range Ukrainian drones carried out a precision strike against the Lazarevo linear pumping station in Russia's Kirov region during the night of May 31, causing a major fire in two crude oil storage tanks that have a combined capacity of 630,000 barrels of oil. The station is located more than 1,200 kilometers from territory controlled by Ukraine, and it is a critical node of the pipeline that transports crude oil from Western Siberia to Russian, Belarusian, and German refineries. Export terminals on the Baltic Sea, such as Primorsk, making it a strategic target within Russia's energy infrastructure. The Ukrainian General Staff confirmed the incursion as part of an operation that also targeted the Saratov refinery and a fuel depot in Rostov. Satellite images and eyewitness recordings showed thick columns of black smoke, as well as indicating damage to the storage tanks. In an impressive display of its capabilities, the new 475th Independent Assault Regiment Code 9.2 has released a video showing literally dozens of attacks far behind the invaders' lines. The recorded raids are carried out both during the day and at night using night vision, infrared, and thermal systems, which show precision attacks against high-value targets such as air defense systems, heavy artillery, radars, trucks, tankers, and logistical vehicles. Many of them are located up to 150 kilometers from the front, something that was impossible to achieve just 6 months ago. According to the unit, the video records 70 combat sorties, of which 59 were carried out with darts drones and 11 with attack drones. Dovush T-20, which Ukrainian operators use to attack Russian military and logistical assets moving along the routes that supply the Crimean Peninsula and the Southern Front, running parallel to the coast of the Sea of Azov in the Zaporizhzhia sector. Confirmed destructions include Buk M2 and Tor M2 air defense systems, a 2S7 Pion self-propelled gun, a P-17 radar T-Terek, 31 trucks, 8 light vehicles, a tanker truck, and an excavator. The Dart's medium-range attack drone series represents a family of loitering munitions developed in Ukraine, optimized for medium-range attacks. These agile winged drones offer greater range, payload capacity, and resistance to electronic warfare, allowing them to penetrate deep into contested airspace. For its part, the Dovush T-20 can operate as a carrier of attack drones or as a medium-range attack platform, carrying a significant warhead. It is generally used for long-range attacks against armored or high-value targets. Both systems take advantage of advanced features such as autonomous target acquisition and tracking, infrared thermal seekers, and enhanced navigation to counter Russian interference. This allows operators to maintain effectiveness even when radio communications are affected, which represents a key evolution in Ukraine's unmanned systems. The Code 9.2 unit began in 2022 as a reconnaissance platoon within the 92nd Assault Brigade, initially conducting foot patrols. By the end of 2022, the unit integrated drones for aerial reconnaissance, quickly recognizing their potential and moving on to dedicated operations with attack drones. The unit's success led to rapid expansion, evolving from a platoon specialized in observation and bombing drones to an attack company, then to the 475th Assault Battalion at the beginning of 2025, and now to a full regiment. It remains part of the 92nd Assault Brigade but operates with considerable autonomy, combining enhanced unmanned aerial vehicle capabilities with other resources such as tanks, artillery, and infantry fighting vehicles. The regiment has neutralized thousands of Russian targets, and in 2024 alone, reported destroying more than 7,000 targets, including 1,500 vehicles. Led by Andriy the Old Mishenko, who was an IT technician in his civilian life, the unit focuses on maximizing enemy casualties and minimizing their own, integrating foreign volunteers while continuing to innovate with new unmanned systems technologies. To finish, a defender shows us a life hack he found to cut the hair on the back of his neck precisely. That's what it means to make the most of the resources available. Hello friends, the Horde cares in great detail about the well-being of Ivan the Invader, so they spare no ruble to send him the best and most advanced personal protective equipment, which in this case is also biodegradable. Just like tourism, the illegal tourist he's supposed to protect. So it's a win for the environment and for the defenders. A border guard soldier earns a medal for good marksmanship by shooting down a low-flying Russian Garin drone using only his rifle, with which apparently he manages to hit the drone's warhead, making it explode, certainly a 1 in a million shot. But not everyone is so lucky as this invader can confirm, who decides to crawl forward right in front of a Ukrainian mosquito that was waiting for targets. This is crazy. The driver of a Russian truck runs out with a stick to try to intercept a mosquito from the 413th Raid Regiment that was coming to impose sanctions on his vehicle. Honestly, I doubt anyone told him what would happen if he hit the mosquito with the stick. But come on, that's clearly an orc devoted to his mission. On May 25th, the 1st Azov Army Corps announced that it had managed to establish fire control over the logistical routes of the Horde, supplying the occupied city of Mariupol. The long-range mosquitoes of the 1st Corps fly over the roads, connecting the strategic port with the Russian city of Taganrog and the occupied city of Volnovakha. This means that the Ukrainian attack mosquitoes are flying all the way to Ukraine's actual border, which is more than 160 kilometers away from the front. The swarm is attacking all military trucks, fuel transports, and combat vehicles they can find on these roads in pairs, which has resulted in a 75% reduction in cargo flow in the area. The invaders now paint their trucks in civilian colors, use nighttime alternate routes, and spread out vehicles to avoid chain reaction destruction after defeats. Dispersing colors? The Azov officers have explained that destroying a howitzer at the front is a complicated process that requires a lot of resources. But destroying 3 trucks that transport ammunition to the howitzer is much simpler and therefore more efficient. The new medium-range attack mosquito force can operate in bad weather, hurricane winds, torrential rains, and total darkness. To take advantage of these capabilities, Azov is increasing the number of drone operator teams, as well as developing systems to plant mines on Russian roads, to make the job of Ivan the truck driver even more difficult. That way, the city of Mariupol may be occupied, but it is not controlled, since the 1st Army Corps has committed to ensuring that the invaders will not have a safe rear area to hide by the Sea of Azov. An important point is that the medium-range mosquitoes are starting to attack the Horde's trucks even before they enter Ukrainian territory. According to reports, this is already happening on the road near the Russian city of Taganrog in the Rostov region, Russia, so we could soon see attacks even further inside Mordor. We continue with the 1st Army Corps, since on May 31, the operators of the Unmanned Systems Battalion of the 3rd Assault Brigade published footage captured by their mosquitoes during a deep strike operation against Russian logistical targets in Luhansk Oblast. The one that reached the Isvarine border post is Varinovsk. According to reports, it is located in Russia's Rostov region, which is more than 205 kilometers from the front line and is a bottleneck for the main logistical artery of the Horde. Troops, equipment, supplies, and ammunition move through it from Mordor to the Donbass front, so attacking it disrupts the resupply of the invading army operating on the main front. During the mission, armored vehicles, ammunition depots, and key supply routes were attacked. The 3rd Army Corps declared that the cities of Luhansk, Starovilsk, Alkevsk, Bryanka, and Kadivka are now under the operational control of Ukrainian drones, which means their drones can conduct reconnaissance and strike targets in these areas. The range of over 205 kilometers exceeds the autonomy that Ukrainian tactical drones were believed to have, and approaches the limit of medium and long-range systems like the FP-1 and FP-2. The operation was planned and led by a commander native to Luhansk, with the codename Skid, who is a hero of Ukraine and defended Mariupol in 2022 as part of the Azov Brigade. The drones demonstrated enough autonomy to fly more than 200 kilometers into enemy territory, conduct detailed reconnaissance with high-resolution images of cities, roads, and targets, and then carry out precision strikes. In the footage, Ukrainian drones fly over Luhansk without interference from fighter jets, helicopters, or anti-aircraft systems, revealing gaps in Russian air defense in this supposedly secure area. General Andriy Beletsky, commander of the 3rd Army Corps, explains it like this. These attacks are our response to the invaders' statements about their total control over the Luhansk region. On May, 10 Milvlogger Z expressed alarm at videos showing Ukrainian Hornet drones operating freely over the H-10 highway, which connects Mariupol with Donetsk, attacking Russian tanker trucks and other military transport vehicles. One of these military bloggers expressed concern that the situation on the ground lines of communication near the occupied city is beginning to resemble that of the M30 highway, which connects Orlivka with Donetsk, where Ukrainian defense forces have managed to paralyze the Horde's logistical traffic thanks to attacks by their mosquito drones. The same person indicated that he fears Ukrainian forces may fully automate the operation of Hornet drones in the next 6 to 12 months, which would make the situation even more complicated. While the world worries about the Kerch Bridge, The invading force is preparing its biggest tactical surprise of the war, a new terrifying amphibious ghost vehicle. Near Bobchansk, the invaders proudly launched their latest innovation into combat in the form of a Kamaz cargo truck, with the roof removed and a trailer attached, which they renamed Pontoon. But then, the Wolfhound Battalion of the 57th Motorized Infantry Brigade enters the scene, who watched in surprise as the masterpiece advanced. The invaders' floating vehicle moved through the town streets, and they couldn't tell if it was a horde attack or just modern art, given how ugly it was. The most surprising thing was that two orcs were standing on top of the contraption and managed to stay on it despite the number of anti-tank mines they were running over. When they reached the river, the mosquito operators snapped out of their stupor and sent a dense swarm to take care of the sui generis vehicle and the truck that was accompanying it. What can I say? There are times when I have no idea what the Mordorites are thinking, and this is definitely one of those times. Still, it's nice that they keep looking for creative ways to be despotinized in style. Keep it up, Ivan. Hello, friends. On June 1st, it was 1 year since the Ukrainian security services surprised the world by carrying out Operation Spiderweb, through which they destroyed a significant part of the strategic bomber force of the invading Federation. And that, without a doubt, will go down in military history books as one of the boldest and most effective covert operations of all time. Now we know that to carry out the attack, 117 drones were used to strike several air bases deep within Mordor's territory, damaging or destroying 41 aircraft, including bombers capable of launching cruise and nuclear missiles, which represented 34% of their entire strategic aviation fleet. Thanks to the testimony of participants in the operation, new details about the attack have emerged, including the fact that the operation was almost discovered when one of the Russian truck drivers, who was taking one of the vehicles to its position, accidentally moved the roof of the prefab cabin, revealing the hidden cargo of drones inside. The Russian called Artem Timofeyev, the Ukrainian, who had been living in Russia since 2014 and was coordinating the operation, who quickly came up with an alibi, telling the driver that the cabins were for hunters and that the drones were used to track animals. The excuse was convincing enough because the Russians sent a photo with the roof back in place, and so the operation was able to continue. Both the drones and the 8 launch cabins were sent to Russia by the SBU through a complex transportation operation, taking advantage of the fact that some Russian border customs agents were more interested in earning a few extra rubles under the table than in asking what those boxes and boxes of drone parts would be used for. Artem Timofeyev and his wife Katerina assembled the drone components in a workshop in Chelyabinsk, not far from a district office of the Russian Internal Security Service. The cabins were equipped with solar panels and batteries to keep the mosquitoes charged, and the drones had communication devices for their control from Kiev. Artem also created a logistics company, hired drivers who were completely unaware of the special cargo they were transporting. After the internal security in a nearby office, internal security at a short distance from the district office, Internal Security Russia, a workshop at a distance, one of the most wanted people in Mordor. But just a few days before the active phase of the operation, the couple left for Kazakhstan under the pretext of a tourist trip, taking with them only the essentials, including their cat and their dog. The mosquitoes were successfully transported near the bases, hidden in the prefabricated cabins, and were released remotely, causing estimated damages of $7 billion. The operation showed that Kiev did have some cards before the negotiations that would take place in Istanbul, delivering a dramatic blow that stunned not only Mordor, but the rest of the world as well. A daring operation for which we hope to see a sequel soon. Here we see the epic detonation of a Bukhanka Z-van that was delivering ammunition to the second-line positions of the Horde on the Kharkiv front. The operation was carried out by the Mosquito operators of the Rubaka unit, belonging to the 77th Air Assault Brigade. Since I know all of you are very concerned about the health of the invaders, and they were traveling on this mission, in my opinion they must be fine. With just a few minor bruises, don't worry. This explains why there are never many Russian bodies in the exchanges on the southern front. The Luftwaffe unit's Bulava loitering munitions continue to patrol the rear roads of the Horde, sending trucks to the sky, to everyone who dares to try to bring fuel to the invaders, as this reckless driver found out. Mordorite. The campaign to block the logistical routes is in full operation, and the fuel shortage has decreased. Also, let's remember that there's a cumulative effect, because replacing each destroyed truck takes time, and it's not free. In this other attack, we can clearly see how Ivan the truck driver quickly abandons the vehicle once it is hit by one of the Bulava munitions, although it could also be a Ram too. In any case, the invader doesn't stop running until he puts a safe distance between himself and the possible explosion of the fuel tank. A Z-Mill blogger who, like all invaders, keeps running until safely away from the fuel. 10 the killer dies for a Fisku. Fisku. Through video of Ivan's adventures in Ukraine, we see how the 413th Regiment of Unmanned Systems, RAVE, goes after a Bukhanka that begins a cinematic retreat. And honestly, a bit chaotic to escape from their pursuers, but which led the driver to literally come face to face with a Mosquito. Mosquito. Meanwhile, his colleague made a lateral ejection to avoid the driver's fate. Like I told you, absolute cinema. How could I not include at least one record of how in today's video Mosquito operators from the IC subunit neutralize a BM-21 Grad Horde multiple rocket launcher system, fully loaded with ammunition, which was hidden in a reinforced agricultural hangar. The Mosquito inspects the vehicle closely until it finds the ideal angle to deliver Putin's kiss. Let's just say the effect was atomic. Ukrainian forces carried out a bold operation with long-range drones during the night of June 3rd, attacking the St. Petersburg oil terminal, which is Russia's largest oil transportation facility in the Baltic Sea, with a capacity of 12.5 million tons per year. But that's not all, since the mosquitoes from the swarm were seen roaming freely over the sea. Airspace over the city, with 5 million people circling around while the defenses couldn't do much, since an anti-aircraft missile could cause even more damage than the drone. That flight pattern was clearly meant to disrupt the opening of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Some say it's the Russian Davos, and it's Russia's flagship event to attract foreign investment. Vladimir Putin actively promotes it and attends every year. President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed the attack, noting that the drones traveled more than 1,100 kilometers to strike critical energy infrastructure that supports Russia's war effort. The drone footage shows massive explosions setting storage tanks on fire, followed by towering columns of black smoke visible throughout the industrial port area. I believe the invaders can't claim there was no damage or that all drones were shot down again. Sure, intercepted by Ivan's oil tanks, that's what they must mean. But the Russians tried to shoot down the raiders with AK rifles, which isn't exactly the image I had of the air defenses of the so-called second strongest army in the world. During the same raid, a group of drones from the 414th Magyar Birds Brigade carried out an inspection visit to the upgrade works on the corvette, Boyki Missile Corvette, of the Staroguzhchi class from the Baltic Sea Fleet, which was undergoing scheduled maintenance in a dry dock at the Kronstadt Naval Base near St. Petersburg. In the footage, we see at least 2 direct hits in the midsection just behind the ship's superstructure, followed by a significant fire. Subsequent satellite images confirmed the presence of smoke, active fire, damage to the superstructure, collapse of the main mast, and damage to the radars. Russian firefighters used water cannons to put out the fire, something the ship's electronics probably didn't appreciate. According to the damage assessment, the ship was incapacitated but is evidently recoverable, given that it was in dry dock. One of the most favorable scenarios for Ukraine would be if Mordor decides to repair it, since restoring a warship could absorb a significant amount of funds, components, specialized labor, and shipyard capacity for years. This is one of the most advanced multi-purpose corvettes of the Z fleet, with a displacement of 2,200 tons of length of 104.5 meters, a maximum speed of 27 knots, and a crew of 100 officers and sailors. It's not a small ship. As for armament, it carried 8 Uran Kh-35 anti-ship missiles, a main gun A1-90-90 of 100 millimeters, AK-630 close-in air defense systems, Redut air defense systems, anti-submarine torpedoes, and a hangar for a K-27 helicopter. This class of ships is designed for anti-submarine warfare and fleet escort. Commissioned in 2013. In recent years, it had been used to escort ships of the Russian Shadow Fleet, operating in the Baltic and in the English Channel. So it was a pretty important ship for Ivan, the pirate, who had to keep his boats in the Black Sea, and judging by how things are going, it looks like the same thing will happen to him in the Baltic. Also on the naval front, the Ukrainian Special Operations Service commemorated the Day of the Special Operations Forces by releasing a secret record of their Mosquito attack against the Russian gun corvette Grad of the Bayan class on October 4, 2025, which was hit by multiple FP-2 type raiders, was severely damaged. The attack took place at dawn on Lake Onega, Republic of Karelia, about 980,000 kilometers from the nearest Ukrainian border. The Grad, a modern corvette of the Buyan class, was incorporated into the Baltic Fleet in December 2022 and was heading to reinforce the Caspian flotilla through Russia's extensive network of inland waterways. These ships are highly valued for their shallow draft design, their stealth features, and their heavy artillery armament. The SSO reported that the attacks targeted the starboard engine compartment, causing critical damage that affected the ship's maneuverability and combat capability. A swarm of several Mosquito drones participated in the attack in a coordinated manner, managing to overwhelm the ship's defenses. The crew apparently felt very secure, traveling more than 1,000 kilometers from Ukraine in inland waters. This shows that few Russian assets are truly out of reach of the defenders. If you want to see additional content about the war in Ukraine, I invite you to visit our 2 new channels where we present information about the war in a different format. Don't forget to check them out. Remember to visit our Patreon, where for just $1, you'll have access to a large number of uncensored videos and documentaries. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel.